we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey, everybody. I'm Tommy, and you're on the lifeboat. Holy mackerel. I ran upstairs after I put on the intro stuff. So, good morning. Before we get rolling, I have literally the most bizarre occupation in the whole world. I swear to you, it's like there's something in the ether. You know, I sell watches, right? I sell vintage watches, very old watches for the most part. And every once in a while, I start to panic, right? Because I got, hundreds of thousands of dollars in inventory. And all of the sales I do are online, with the exception of a couple of watch shows that I do every couple of months. I'll do a watch show. If watches don't sell online, you start panicking. You know what I mean? Like if you go 6 or 7 days without a watch selling, you start getting really nervous because normally you sell one every day, every other day, something like that. So there's been about 10 days, no exaggeration, that no one has bought a watch. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, this is bad. Like this is really, really bad. I don't know whether it's the economy or what's going on, but people just stop buying watches. And then out of the blue, it's like people get a memo all at once. And then you don't just turn back on, but you turn back on all at once. It's really the most bizarre thing. And I've seen it happen now like 3 times. So really busy morning. As it turns out, I am now supplying watches to a group of people that supply everything old for movies. Like when you watch a movie from the 30s, these are the prop people that supply all the watches, telephones, whatever. So I am now the watch guy for a prop company, which is really kind of cool. And if they can't afford to buy the watch and keep it, then they'll rent it, which would be even better. Like if they rented all of them, but I'm sure that bored the hell out of you. But that's why I was running down here and got late to the chair, which I don't think I've done yet. That may be a first time. Let me see something here. Yeah, I gotta see if I can blow this stuff up. M Hunt, I'm pretty fired up about it. It's a pretty cool thing. It's nice to I don't know. I love period movies anyway. Like I'm super into black and white films. I'm super into old movies. So to me, there's something really cool about knowing that whatever these films are, they won't tell you what they are until the things are done. But I'm mailing them to studios in Hollywood who are then going to be passing it on to some people in Italy. That can't happen, Kat. I'll put up with a lot. You can't do that. Come here. Good kitty. Oh, boy. All right. This girl just knocked over a light. Sorry. She is really on one. Charlie, it is. It's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to, once these things come out, looking at it and going, "Oh, I know that watch, right? Check this out. This is going to be a whatever, kind of a watch, or whatever the case may be, because I'm going to be supplying a bunch of them. So it's really kind of cool. I'm pretty happy about it. The cat, however, I don't know what it is. I guess most cats are nocturnal, right? So they're up all night, and then they sleep all day. This cat did that when I first got her, and then she sort of got used to my schedule, and so she sleeps at the same time I do, in the same place. So when I get up, she's ready to just tear the house up, and the office and everything else. All right, sorry, people. So if you saw the thumbnail, I think this is a fascinating subject, and it's one that we've touched on, or actually done a lot on, numerous times in the past. There are cliches that abound in recovery, and one of the cliches that you hear all the time is, "This isn't a sprint, right? It's a marathon." And the truth of the matter is, it's neither. Marathons end, and they end long before the end of your life. So this is really one of those things where you're going to. It's a life change, and I know there are people on the boat who do not practice full abstinence from every substance, which makes absolutely no difference to me. If your poison was cocaine and you're not doing cocaine anymore, as far as I'm concerned, if you're controlling whatever else you're doing, that's sobriety. And I know that really chaps people in the recovery community. They really hate it when you say stuff like that. But I just don't. I guess I don't see it the same way that they do. As I said, I'm not. I'm not a pot smoker or any of that, or any other stuff for that matter. The only thing I'm allowed to do, per the government, would be alcohol, and I've never really been a big fan. But so let's take that for granted, right? When I start talking about the long road and sobriety and living a better life, I'm not talking about full abstinence, unless you're me, or you're someone like me, right? If you're one of those individuals who has come to the conclusion that they're just not built to do any substances. I know that there are a couple I could control. I'm just not a big fan of any of them. For me, when I found my substance of choice, everything else started to get real boring. Honestly, like I used to do whatever I could get my hands on, until I found my drug of choice, and then everything else just bothered me. I didn't really want to do. My daughter identifies as a cat. Oh, that's great. That is really, really funny. The recovery community has extremely low success rate. Emma, you make a really good point. You make a really good point. And I'll tell you something. Their success rates are low, and they're not even honest. For real. If you look at the success rates of any of the people out there, or any of the groups out there, very often they're in single digits. If they're being really honest, they're in single digits. And you're right. I think there kind of needs to be a paradigm shift. And again, if you're somebody that cannot do anything, and you've come to that realization, that's great. If you're somebody that can't do one thing, or can't do two things, or whatever, and you've come to that conclusion, I think that's great too. So putting that aside and taking that for granted, this is one of those processes that I think fall into a couple of categories. And I think this is really important in the whole recovery thing, because very often people confuse chemical free or dry with what sobriety is. And I am of the firm belief that sobriety is when you get to a point in life where you're not surviving without your substance of choice, but you're thriving. You're living the life that you would have led normally had you never found anything, right? That's kind of what we're going for. If you're not doing blow, and you're happy, and you're functional, and all of these things that you do happy, right? Content. And you're not always going to be happy. If you are, there's a problem. For real. If you're always happy, there's something wrong. We're not built that way. We really aren't. And I think one of the reasons we're not is because there would be no perspective, right? If every day was a 10 on the happy scale, how the hell would you know it was a 10? The way we realize how good life is because, hold on. I was already sober when I came to this channel. That's right. V was absolutely sober when she came here, and has just been doing really well since. So the when you get to that juncture where you're starting to evaluate whether or not this whole sobriety thing, if you're happy in it, if you still find more of your waking hours are spent gritting your teeth to remain sober, you're dry, you're chemical free. If you're just in the beginning, everybody does this. Everybody. I've never met anybody that just stopped on a Monday and was like, Tuesday life is great. Usually doesn't work that way. Everybody goes through some kind of a period. I've seen some people that have really short ones for whatever reason, but everybody goes through a period of adjustment where our coping mechanism is gone, right? So for a very long time, what we used to feel comfortable in our own skin, to get over depression, to get over anxiety, to get over everything has now been pulled away. So you have to replace what the dope did. So if you're one of those people who used to consume alcohol because you are really, really uncomfortable in social situations, right? You are going to have to get to a point where you can be comfortable in social situations without booze. You have to be able to substitute sobriety for what your drug of choice did. And at that point, right now we're on the hey, good girl. Now we're on the long road. That's the road to happiness, to recovery, to all of that. I said that too quickly. Now she's going to pull down the lighting apparatus. Literally. Hey, you're the complaint? Hey, knock that off. Come here. Sadly, the light has like a rope that's kind of attached to it. And you know how cats are with ropes and strings and such? Cat is a menace. I'm telling you, I should have gotten a turtle. We talk a lot about the bag of tricks. In the very early part of our road to sobriety, the bag of tricks is not the same bag of tricks you'll be using for the rest of your life. When you first start trying to get sober, very often the bag of tricks has to be very extreme. What I mean by that is, in the beginning, you might skip to the fourth thing in your bag of tricks. If usually the last straw is, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call somebody who in other programs would be called a sponsor. Somebody who is in the recovery community and can talk to me about trying to remain sober, giving advice, answering questions, or just plain talking to me until I decide that I no longer want to use, right? In the beginning, you might want to jump to that very quickly. And the people that you're going to be working with, sorry, she tried to eat my phone. The people that you're going to be working with are probably going to be well aware of the fact that they're going to get an awful lot of phone calls in the beginning. I've worked with some of you people on the boat. I've worked with some people on the boat who, especially in the beginning, because in the beginning there weren't enough people around to sort of engage and become support for one another. So in the beginning, I kind of did it for a lot of people, and there were days where I was telling Heather Joy about this the other day. There were days where, you know what chain smoking cigarettes are, where you're literally going from one cigarette to light the next one, and you do that all day long. Well, there was a period of time where it was chain phone calls. I would go from one individual to the next individual to the next individual. And this would go on for 8 or 9 hours, like no joke. And sometimes it would be one person who calls 7 times during the day. The journey, eventually, all of those things sort of fall by the wayside. The longer people are sober, and look, I'm closing out on year 8, but I've spent a lot of time around people who, are into decades. They're not counting by years anymore, but more, counting by decades. People that have 30 and 40 years sober, who say that, in the very end, maintenance might be a couple of times a year, that you need to reach out to somebody, because you will have learned the coping skills necessary to remain. Don't worry about grammar. Life is a bitch, and it does not care if you succeed or fail. You have to fight the demons of life every day and kick its ass down. All have done it, and sorry, people, it's my eyes, it's not him done it. And one's on the way. Life's tough. And I probably would have agreed with that statement word for word at a period of time in my life. I think I've gotten to the point where I spend more time content than I do upset. When I quit doing dope, it seemed to me that life was a series of heart-wrenching disappointments, and in between was the fun that you had that keeps you from wanting to just cash in your chips, right? It's those stretches in between tragedy. And I have gotten to the point where even when the really bad is happening, even when those episodes that just seem like they're more than you can handle, I've gotten to the point where I really enjoy all of it. I really do. I've gotten to the point where even the down days, the days where, and there are days, people, that I feel like crap, right? Everybody in sobriety goes through this. Even people who are not in sobriety, but they know how to deal with it usually. So there are days in sobriety that I don't feel particularly good. I don't really feel like doing what I'm doing. One of the reasons that the lifeboat was important from the very start was I couldn't take a day off. And that meant I couldn't take a day off of concentrating on sobriety. That just wasn't an option. So on days that I just didn't want to even face it, I had to come on here and talk about sobriety and talk about issues that face us. And that, I think, has saved me. But on days that especially in the beginning of the boat, not in the beginning of sobriety, but when I first started the channel, there would be days that I was just struggling to get through the day, right? I was not in any danger of using. That hasn't happened in a long time, honestly. With 1 or 2 days of exception in the last 3 or 4 years, I was never in any danger of using a substance to get through the day. But I've had days where life sucks. Really tough things happen, something with the family or something with my kids. And on top of that, you're just having a bad day. And then 5 of you would reach out to me having the same kind of day. And having had an opportunity to glance in on the lives of hundreds of people who are also going through sobriety, I have learned that, and it sounds like such a friggin' cliche, and go ahead and hate me, but that really is when everything good comes out of something that sucks. Like the growth in your life. And I know it sounds like a cliche. If somebody had said this to me 5 years ago, I'd have slapped them. But those days that are really crap, those days that just hurt, or events that keep you really pissed off for 2 weeks at a time, or really hurting for 2 weeks at a time. If you get up, get out of bed, make it, go downstairs, eat something, walk into the world unhappy, and make that day, get it by. And when you get home at the end of the day, you eat dinner, it has not been a great day. You didn't at 11 o'clock have an epiphany right before lunch and think, life's perfect. No, life sucks. And it's a very difficult thing, and it does not feel like fun. And those demons that you're talking about, you end up walking side by side with. I don't know that you end up beating them at any point, but you sure end up living with them and getting to some form of peace. And then you pull out that friggin' journal before you go to bed, and the pen or pencil hits the paper. And as that stuff starts flowing out, I've gone back and read the things that I've written after those days. And they usually start out with about 2 sentences, maybe 3, of just how crappy this day started out. And by the time I'm done writing, I'm not going to tell you that I'm talking about puppies and kittens, but there will be something in there that will have changed the remainder of my sobriety. Every single day that I managed to get through without using, and I'm not talking about run-of-the-mill Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I mean those epic days. There are some of you that have been on the boat a very, very long time. For those of you who have not, I knew a girl that we used to call her number 5. Because this girl erroneously thought that the perfume Chanel number 5, anyway, that we called her 5 after the perfume. And I went away. And when I went away, she was maybe 18 or 19. This girl had just gotten out of high school, and she had been strung out already for years. This is a beautiful, beautiful girl. And for those who've been on the boat a long time, I got out and ran into this girl at a gas station. And when I first looked at her, it was like, that can't be her. Now, you go to prison, and when you get out, everybody looks older, right? That's just how it goes, because you disappear for a long period of time. But she didn't just look older. She looked harder, like life had been beating the piss out of her since the last time I saw her. And by this point, she's now in her late 20s, and she came up to me and at first did not recognize me. But as she started to get closer, you could tell that she did. And for a brief second, she got a big smile on her face. And then she went right back to where she was in life and propositioned me for pay for play sex. She basically came on to me as a prostitute and said, I'll do X for this much money. And it was, just heartbreaking. And I walked into the store and I bought whatever I was in there for. And I came back out and she was there. And I gave her money. I didn't take her up on the offer, but I gave her money. And then I came on here and I told people about it. And boy, a lot of people called me the world's biggest dirtbag. And it was a tough day. It really was, because some of the early members of the boat, that was a day where we lost a bunch of people, for real. It started a very ugly time around here where people just said some of the cruelest things. And it went on for months. People actually started channels just to talk crap about me. And this went on for a very long time. But that day was really difficult. And in my head, I've been a heroin addict for a really long time. And I know what it feels like. For me, I had to steal. For this girl, she had to sell her body. And I knew that if I handed her some cash, it wasn't going to get her sober. It wasn't going to change her life. But it was going to keep her from having to let some scumbag put his hands on her in order to get well that night. And she had started by saying, and I've only got 40 minutes to call this dude before he stops selling. Where I live, when it gets dark out, they will not make deliveries anymore because they're afraid of getting robbed. So it was only when the sun is still out. So I gave her a piece of paper with the name of the channel and a little bit of info, how to get a hold of me and whatever, and said, you know what, please just call me because I can probably help you, at least try, right, to get off of this crap. If I did it, you can do it. And she didn't call that number. Her mom did a couple of days later. I don't remember how many days later. It might have been 2, it might have been 3. But she was found dead in a hotel room from an overdose. And I wanted to get high that day. I mean, I really, really wanted to get high that day. The thing with my drug, and I don't know, because I've really never been addicted. I've done a ton of stuff, but this drug I was addicted to for a very long time. And the reason I was addicted to it was because you could turn off everything for 8 to 10 hours. And I mean, somebody tells you that a family member just died, you can turn that off for 8 hours. For 8 hours, pain is killed, right? It is a painkiller, and it kills physical pain, spiritual pain, emotional pain. And I wanted so bad for about 8 hours of relief. And then I got all kinds of emails from people that said, well, you helped her right along the way, didn't you? I started getting emails from people that said, maybe if you didn't give her that money, she wouldn't be dead. So that was a bitch. It really was. And it dragged on for probably 2 or 3 days. I mean, the guilt, real serious guilt. And once I started getting back to where I was sober, not just dry, because for about 3 days I was white knuckling it. I really was. But once I started to get back to a point where I was more myself, I didn't do anything to help that girl along the way. I didn't. What was I going to do? Tackle her, punch her in the face, stick her in my car, bring her home? No. And you know what? If I could do it all over again, I don't think I would have changed it. I would have handed her that cash. She had about 72 hours left on the planet, and about 5 of them didn't suck. And I don't regret that. But there are going to be days where you want to use. And there are going to be days where the desire to use is overwhelming because we just don't know how to cope with what is going to be coming down the pike. For me, I've gotten to a point where when life starts to get really crappy, I start looking for a lesson. I really do. I realize that if you go back and look at my life, and I'm in my early 50s, and I don't think I've ever had any growth in my life that did not come out of something effing tragic. When I walked away from something with knowledge or understanding or insight into who I was and what my place was and all of that, I never had a really awesome, fantastic day and thought, I just learned something really important. I have figured this thing out. That has never happened to me, especially not in sobriety. The days that I go home and journal and realize that I may have figured something out, it came from something crappy. And if you have been on the boat a really long time, we had a woman on the boat who passed away, and her family had called us to tell us that she passed away. And the truth of the matter is she took her own life, and the people on the boat all knew it. And maybe her family did too, and they just didn't want to, I don't know. But that was another one. But I didn't want to get high. I didn't. It was a kick in the stomach. And for probably 5 or 6 months, there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't think about it. And I mean, I still think about her all the time. In fact, every time I make a thumbnail, there's a picture of 6 of us. We had a Brady Bunch kind of Zoom call. And there's a picture of her in it laughing hysterically. And she just had this very infectious laugh. So every single time I make a thumbnail, I see her. And it's there as a reminder, It's there as a reminder that if I'm having a shit day, I should probably still check my emails.
and look for at least something that looks. I don't get back to everybody the same day that they email me. It's impossible. I mean, it just is at this point. It's not possible. But before I answer one, I open everyone, because if someone's got something, for usually the first two sentences will give you an idea if this person is in deep stuff or if this person is just wants some advice or a little maintenance or something like that. But I learned a hell of a lot from Cindy Lamb's passing. I did. I honestly learned a hell of a lot. When number 5 died, it was very, very personal. I knew this girl a long time, and it was very, very personal. But when Cindy took her life, she was on the boat and was an active member on the boat. And we had nights where she screamed at me, and we had phone calls where we went back and forth. Like this was a person that I was working with on a real regular basis. And when you start doing something like this, when you start doing something with the idea of, I'm going to try to help people get sober, you're very idealistic in the beginning. M. Hunt made a good point earlier. He said, the rehabilitation community does not have a great success rate. And no, they don't. They don't have they don't even have a halfway decent success rate. So when you start because you believe that you can do a hell of a lot better job than what the community has been doing for a long time. And when you have a couple that you lose, you take it very, very personally. Even if you tell yourself going in that, you can't save everybody. If it's somebody that you were working with very closely, you believed you could save that person. You have to believe that you can save every person, right? No matter how jacked up they are. You couldn't possibly do this 2 hours every day without the belief that there's nobody too far gone to bring back. But Cindy's passing was, honestly, I think I got as much growth out of that as I did out of quitting. True story. It was one of those. It was one of those experiences that when it was over, and it's never over, but when the dust settled. If you've never been on this channel when I came on wearing a tie, I don't dress up for good news. Maybe I should someday, but if I put on a tie, it's because we lost somebody. And those shows are almost impossible to do. I am a very emotional guy. And I think a lot of people who get sober, their emotions are really close to the surface. And I think that that's just the nature of sobriety. But mine are very close to the surface. And with we've lost a bunch of people that don't talk a lot in the comment section. They may email me back and forth or whatever, but they're not super active in the comment section. Cindy was super active in the comment section. There was nobody on the boat that didn't know her. And the show that we did the night we lost her was a funeral. There's really no other way to put it. And I remember talking to my bobble-headed partner at the time. And we contemplated not doing it. Like, we really spent a decent amount of time talking about not doing it. And it was a metaphor for every single thing that was going to happen for the rest of this channel. And by that, I mean, there are going to be days that the assignment seems like more than you can effing handle. There are going to be days where dropping your ass into this seat is going to seem like climbing Everest, at least emotionally. And every time I get through one of those, I have learned something. I'm not going to say I'm a better person because I don't really know that that's the case. But every time I've had to do one of those shows that was so hard that I didn't think I could do it, when it was over, I had learned something. And I learned something that I've been able to take into this. And I don't mean just talking to you guys. I mean this whole sobriety thing. A great deal of why I sit in front of this microphone is to work on myself as much as it is to try to help anybody else. But I bring up those two deaths because the first one, I wanted to get high. I really did. Like I even did. I think I came on the air and just that was the first thing I said out of my mouth. You know what? I'd like to get high today. I really would. I'm not gonna, but boy, do I want to get high today. And when we lost Cindy, which was more personal in a lot of ways because everybody knew her. It wasn't me coming on here and saying, "Let me tell you about this person." I didn't have to do that. Everybody here knew this person. I think had she happened first, I probably would have come on and said, "You know what? I really want to get high today." But I didn't. And it was because of the first episode. If you can get through the days that suck, following the simple framework that the lifeboat has put out in front of you, get up, make your friggin' bed, journal, but when you wake up and journal before you go to bed. I mean, honestly, how much more do we talk about? That's pretty much it. And then we talk about how to get through the times where it's really crappy and how the opposite of addiction is connection. That's pretty much what 810 shows have been about. So if you're having a day where the world is kicking the ever-loving hell out of you, if you're having one of those days where you think, I can't get through this, and you do, and I mean you do what we do every day. You get through it by getting up, by making your bed, by journaling, by doing all of the things that you didn't do when you were getting high. The day after number 5 died, getting up and making my bed, I didn't want to leave the bed. I didn't want to get out of that bed. Boy, did I not want to get out of that bed. But I knew if I didn't get up and do everything that I've been doing since the very first day that I quit this poison, then I was in relapse. It doesn't mean I'm going to get high, but it means I'm in relapse. And relapse ends with you really pulling the brake at the right time, figuring out what the hell's going on in your life. Or it ends with a needle in my arm and my hands cuffed behind my back, because that's how it's going to end. So, yeah, there are days that life is a bitch. There are days, honestly, that life is a bitch. And there are days that the demons that we walk side by side with would like to maybe walk behind us, and try to do things while we're walking. Or they would like to walk and just maybe throw a punch or two at your head as you're going down the road. But if you come to believe that something epic is supposed to happen in your life out of this tragedy, and it's a difficult thing to do. It really is. It's a difficult thing to do. But there are people on this boat that have been here forever. And when we lost Jared, it was a shit day. And that was not a fun day to put on a tie either. But it was different. And I had been working with him a lot, one-on-one. But it was different. Unlike the previous 2 times I put on a tie, I was already looking for a life lesson. I really was. My eyes were wide open, and I was already in that mindset of there's something really huge that is going to happen here. It's yeah. I probably get more out of the shitty days than I do out of the good ones, and I'm sorry for my language this morning, but I get a whole lot more. I don't really learn anything on days that are good. They're fun. They really are. They're days that I have a very easy time getting through, you know. And there are some laughs, but I sure as hell am not going to be any better the following day, or any wiser. Yeah. Well, I've been a ray of sunshine this morning, haven't I? The honestly, it may sound like I'm not being, but I'm not joking. In that, I think the longer that you do this, the more you realize that there really isn't a bad day sober. There isn't. There are days that are going to suck, but when you look back on it, those days will be the times that you emerged a completely different person than you entered. And I'm bringing these things up because I'm bringing this stuff up because all of you know about it, or a lot of you know about it, or you can go back and watch it, right? Because it's there, and the entire world can see it. In fact, I doubt we could ever get rid of it. That's how the internet works. But there have been a lot of these life lessons that you all don't know about, right? Because there are situations that I don't come on here and talk about because that's the nature of life, right? I share an awful lot of what happens in my life on the lifeboat, but of course there's parts of it that I don't, and it probably is a lot better that way. And we all have, at any given time, everybody's got something, right? That's on the surface. You know, maybe they've got a family member that's not doing well, and it's weighing on their mind. Or maybe their health is going to crap. You know, and and the older you are, when your health goes to crap, the more you look at the finish line and wonder how far away it is, and and you start to fail. You know, the older you get, you remember a time when you thought you could do anything, and you were, you know, you're Superman, and then you realize that, yeah, I'm to the point now where there's a lot of things I can't do because of my age, and then you start getting to a point where if you can find your phone and your keys in the morning, it might be a decent day, right? Because you tend to forget where everything is. But on every single one of those days, I'm honestly now trying to look for the lesson, not the silver lining. Not the silver lining, because I don't always know that there's a silver lining, you know? And even the silver linings have a touch of gray. I think Robert Hunter might have said that in a poem that ended up a Grateful Dead song. Bad memories dig a deeper memory groove. Good days to me. Let me see if I can blow this up any further, people. I'm sorry, because I am literally blind. Bad memories dig a deeper memory groove. Good days to me, you son of a... good days to me have to be exceedingly good for me to remember, but just simple days I rarely remember. You know what? I think that's probably pretty astute. And I think that the older you get, the more you tend to not, you know, sort of retain things that aren't one or the other. M. Hunt says, my head spins when I'm at a grocery store or gas stations. I'm bombarded by advertisements and endless cases of delicious alcohol waiting to poison me and separate me from a decent life. You know, there's a guy that my brother and I know, and if you go out to eat with him, when the waiter comes along, he'll order a Jack and Coke. And then he'll say, hold the Jack. but he'll wait until the waiter's walking away. And I know that there's a day coming where he's not going to say that to the waiter that's walking away. Hunt, I know that the stuff that you're fighting, I think, is the most insidious substance on the planet because of how ubiquitous it is, and because so much of society thinks it's harmless. There's so much of our society that is able to just have a few beers or a glass of wine or whatever, and for them, you look at those people and you think, good Lord, like, if they sold heroin at 7-Eleven, I would probably have to find a new place to live. So my heart goes out to anybody that is fighting with addiction to alcohol. I would like to believe, and I have reason to believe, that will go away over time. In my previous life, when I was a businessman, there was a guy that we used to work with, and his name was Rich. And Rich was an absolute savant when it came to stock, right? And this guy was our resident expert on all things stock related. And since we were a publicly traded company, that was kind of a big deal. He also would get up in the morning, drink 2 16-ounce beers, and by the time lunch rolled around, he'd have a half a fifth of bourbon gone. And this was every single day. And I watched him do this for probably about 4 years. And by the time I met this guy, he was probably 50, right? And I was in my early 30s. And I watched this guy drink until he hit reverse tolerance. I watched this guy drink until when he got up in the morning and he drank that first 16-ouncer, he was so loaded, you could not understand what he was saying anymore. And it got to a point where this savant wasn't such a savant anymore. I mean, he still knew a hell of a lot. He just couldn't seem to link it together to do anything productive. And of course, I was still sticking needles in my arm. But I remember the last time I saw him, and I was with a friend of mine named Cody. And I said, what do you figure the odds are he's alive next year? Literally, it was the last time I saw him, that was what came out of my mouth. I said, what do you figure the odds are that he'll be alive next year? And Cody said, not too good. So now the man is almost 70 and has not had a drink in forever. And as it turns out, the man plays the guitar. None of us ever knew this, but he has become a sort of a classical guitarist and actually tours. And I was so blown away when I heard this. But this guy goes on the road, and I had an opportunity to talk to him on the phone, and I said, do you miss it? Good God, dude, you had 50 years. And he said, I did for a year. He said, for a year, it almost killed me. His family got him this just ridiculous program, but I'm not exaggerating. They take a piece of rope. It's like 3 feet long or some shit. And they tie it through their belt loop onto the person's belt loop who's trying to get sober. If they did that to me, I would have killed the guy. But apparently for the first year, these two were linked together. And for the second year, this guy lived with him. He was his sober whatever, sober buddy, sober assistant. I don't know what the hell you call him. But for the following year, he lived with him. They were not linked together anymore. It got to a point where he was trusted to go to the restroom on his own. Prior to that, literally, he was not trusted to go to the restroom on his own. And I said, you don't miss it anymore? He said, I don't. He said, in every city I go to, somebody comes up after the show and says, let me buy you a drink. Because he doesn't go on stage and tell people that, he's a walking miracle who used to consume more booze than just about anybody on the planet. But I feel like if this cat got to a point where he can handle that, it's I have hope for anybody because this dude was so far gone. This guy was to alcohol what I was to heroin, honestly. Like it was just it was such a part of his thing. Sobriety umbilical cord. Yeah, it's pretty much what you were looking at. It's a very odd concept, to be sure. It's a very odd concept. But do you know how many odd concepts have been done to try to help people get sober? You guys remember something called Outward Bound? Um, so when I was a kid, I lived in New England, and a lot of New England is made up of people who have been there and like to tell you as soon as they meet you that their family can be traced back to the Mayflower. And they probably haven't left the town that they've been in since shortly after the Mayflower touched down. Um, but their family tends to have a ridiculous amount of money. They're blue bloods. They're obnoxious, is what they are. But when their kids get bad drug problems, they would put them in this thing called Outward Bound. And there was like 4 copies of it, but the original was Outward Bound. And then they will take you out and drop you on an island that literally at high tide is like 4 feet by 4 feet wide, right? At low tide, you got enough to walk around on. And they give you a bag of granola, right? Some fishing tackle and some stuff like that. And they will swing by on a boat, every couple of days. And this is the kind of stuff they did to try to help people get sober. And every once in a while, you would read a story about somebody that would do something epic in life. You know what I mean? Like they became an Olympian or something. And, after winning an Olympic medal, they would say, if it wasn't for Outward Bound, I never would have made it. And just ridiculous things that really challenged you, and usually it had something to do with being dumped in the middle of nature. Really a bizarre concept until they killed 2 people in one summer. But it gives you a real good idea of the desperation. Truth be told, no matter how many people get addicted to this crap, and no matter how many different techniques that they come up with, until they get to that point where they can go in your brain and snip whatever it is that makes us who we are, then every one of us that manages to get up every single morning, make our bed, journal, and get through the day are going to be a miracle. But I'm here to tell you that if my degenerate, I was really a horrendous person, people. I don't think there's no way for me to give it perspective. There just isn't. But if I can get to a point where I spend way more time happy than I do otherwise, I believe anybody can do that. I believe that, Wharton. And M. Hunt, I believe that as well. If you ever read Duff McKagan's book, Duff McKagan had got to a point where he was drinking 4 cases of beer a day, and he blew up his pancreas. Like he's done. He has to twice a day or something. He's got to do dialysis. Like when he tours, there has to be a dialysis machine going with him. If you read his book, like he went to the doctor and the doctor's like, you can't drink this much beer. And they moved him to hard liquor. And then they had to move him to wine. And at the end, he was drinking wine, and he was drinking a case a day, 12 bottles of wine a day. Just so far gone. And if you look at any of the old pictures of the first tour, he just looks like he has no idea where he is. And the story goes, if you've ever watched The Simpsons, like the Bud Light guy on The Simpsons is, of course, called Duff Man. And Matt Groening went to a concert, and he had backstage passes. So he went and saw Guns N' Roses, and he watched Duff McKagan drink 4 cases of beer. And he just, in absolute horror. And he said to him, you cool with me maybe making the beer guy on my show and calling him Duff Man? And Duff said, sure. And then years later, he was talking to Slash, and he made some comment about, pretty funny, isn't it, that the guy on The Simpsons is called Duff Man? And Slash was like, he's named after you. Duff McKagan had absolutely no memory whatsoever of ever having that happen. He'd been watching The Simpsons for what, a decade and a half? And just thinking, what a coincidence. Had no memory of meeting Matt Groening or any of that. Boy, that's tough substance. Emma Hunt, I'm glad you read the beginning of it. He literally blew up his pancreas. And if you look at any of the people that surrounded that band or that era, so many of them just drank themselves to death. Tommy Bird, good to see you. He says, sorry, Captain, you do not have to apologize to me ever, bro. Well, I'm glad that you're spending time with your kids. That's good stuff. That's really good stuff. And keeping up is, yeah, I can completely understand that as well. But yeah, fear not. Crazy trivia, right, M. Hunt? Yeah. Duff Man is definitely named after Duff McKagan. My father was on morphine and hard alcohol when I was in diapers. He'd stand me against the wall and throw butcher knives around me. Holy hell. Good God in heaven. Tommy, I see patients like that too. Drink 12 pack of beer and then a fifth of liquor daily. Sad, because some of them, the liver is shot and nothing they can do. You know what? I'll end with one more fun story since it's just been one of those kind of upbeat shows. There was a guy who lived at a house that I used to go and buy. I robbed every drug dealer in northern Nevada. Literally. I would go in and pistol whip them and take their dope. So it got to a point where I couldn't buy drugs. Nobody would sell me drugs in northern Nevada. In fact, it got to a point where they wouldn't sell drugs to anybody bald. Like it really got to a point where they were pretty tripped out because, you know, the new guys who were just showing up were only hearing stories, but I was not popular with the people that sold the stuff that I did. So for that reason, I had to go to a house to pick stuff up. And the house that I went to had a guy on it. I mean, a guy that lived there. Going on 7 months sober. Joe from Duluth. I missed that, Joe. Welcome to the lifeboat, man. Glad that you're here. I really am. Most of our shows are fairly upbeat. Today was not one of them, but and that's the cat that's usually in the basket. So I used to go to this guy's house, and because he could make a phone call, and the people that I had probably already robbed would show up at his house, and I would hide in the garage until they got there. And I had gotten incarcerated for bank robbery and went away and all that. So I got out, and then I got in trouble again. And I was in the county jail waiting to go to prison on the gun charge. And they said, we're bringing down all of the guys from medical because there's no television in medical. And these guys don't get to watch TV. So they're going to wheel them in. And, you know, these guys are all in really bad shape, but they were going to come in to watch the TV where we were at. And they wheel this guy in, and I'm staring at him, and he's staring at me. And I know everyone's had this experience where you look at somebody and you're like, damn, I know that dude. Like, I know that dude. I don't know where I know that dude from, but I know that dude. The difference was he knew exactly who I was. And he just stared at me and stared at me. But I'll tell you something. One of the most terrifying experiences of my life was talking to this dude. Because, like, you talk about the scared straight stuff. He looked like he weighed about 300 pounds. He didn't. But his liver had shut down, and he was just like, he was at the end, and he was just, he was bloating out and retaining and everything else. And, you know, when I knew him, he was 145 pounds. And he just said to me, he goes, look, dude, he goes, you're not going to listen to anything I say. He's like, you're going to go to prison. You're going to do heroin. You're probably going to share needles with people. He's like, and the day is coming where your liver's going to shut down like mine. And like, he just jumped me, you know, like he went up one side of me and down the other. And I said, yeah, man. No, I promise you I'm going to get clean. And he grabbed me with whatever strength he had left. And he said, you're like the 10th person I've talked to. He's like, get a good look at me, man. It was one of those moments that honestly freaked me the hell out. It really did. Not enough to get sober, of course. That took a little more, but it was the liver shuts down and it's not a pretty thing. 7 months, Joe from Duluth. That is a hell of a good start right there, man. That really is. You have passed the one, the half year mark is a big deal. You're approaching that 1 year. Well, welcome to the Light Bulb, man. We're really happy you're here. We meet at the 5s. So that would be 5 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock at night, Pacific Standard Time. So we are always here. We also have a Facebook page, which I'm sure Charlie Mullins is probably going to pop up in the chat if he hasn't already done so, because he's pretty good that way. Milk Thistle. Chris King is the absolute master of dropping, like, if ever you need anything that is holistic or has to do with herbs or anything, Chris King is amazing. Alrighty, people. Normally, Joe from Duluth, we end every show by me going, we'll see you in 11 hours, and this is a cat in a basket. However, for the last 2 days, I don't know what's going on with Squirrel Nut Zipper, but Squirrel is on my lap and has been for the entire show. So this is a cat that should be in a basket. Alrighty, peeps. I love you guys. I really. All right, John Doe, have a great day. I hope to see, you know what? It's Full of Hope says trophy for Joe. The trophy has been packed and I need to get it out. And honestly, I remember when this thing got packed, I was like, don't do that. And I'm going to have to get that back out because that really is an important thing. It needs to be the last thing to be packed up. But, right. Stand on the equipment. Good idea. Yeah, what a cute cat. Alrighty, people. I will see you all in 11 hours. I'm Tommy Scoville, and this is the Light Bulb. We'll see you. God bless everybody. Are you happy, cat?